So today we're continuing to just work fractions, decimals, percents, turning one thing into another. So we did this another day where we turned percents into fractions. It's back again. How is it that we can take fractions, any fraction, or excuse me, percent, any percent, turn it into a fraction? What was our rule on that a few days ago?
What, 20 over 100?
Yeah, we're just going to put it over 100. And then there's one more thing you have to do every time you make a fraction answer. What do we have to do? Anytime we're making a fraction answer, at least consider it. It's an important word that starts with R. Reduce. We need to look to reduce. The first day we did this, nothing reduced. And we had a pretty easy day on page 190. Today, you're not going to be so lucky. Today, there's going to be a good bit of reducing. So we start off with like 20 over 100. We'd start off with 25 over 100. We'd start off with 5 over 100. Every single time, every single number goes on top of 100. Today, any of those win, or are we going to have to reduce all three of those? We're going to have to reduce all three. So let's get three different customers. Somebody for 20 over 100. Get it down, down, down as far as it can go. It is 1/5. You couldn't reduce with 5s, 10s, 20s. Lots of numbers go into both. You just have to get all the way down. 25 and 100. Yeah. 1/4. What did you divide everything by there? 25. You can divide them both by 25 immediately, or you could have worked through phases where you divided by 5s or took you a couple steps. Somebody else, 5 and 100? Won't be a half, but that's close. If it was 5/10, it would be a half. Slight reconsider. Try.
125th?
No.
120.
120, yeah. What we can do is use the 5/10 to get like a half, like you were thinking. But then that extra 0, just plop it over there. So we could go 1/20th that way. These both divide by 5s. That's part 1 of a 2-part lesson, making percents into fractions. We've done that before. Just today there will be more reducing in the homework than there was the previous day. Question about that concept? Okay, then new to us this year, we've not taken any percentages and made them decimals. So here's a bunch of percentages. We're trying to make those decimals today. So we're relying on last year's math. Does anybody from last year's math remember either like a sentence or two of how to do it, or you just want to take on a problem or two? I don't care if we go in order, but can anybody either make any of these into decimals without the instruction, or can you give us a little bit of group sentence worth? What's the scheme? What's the plan?
You take the percentage symbol and just move it like over to change it to a decimal.
How far do you move it?
Like over to the left of far left of the decimal.
So you're going to go to the very beginning every time?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to agree but disagree on that. We can move the decimal. We can move it left, but it's not going to be all the way to the beginning every time. But we're in the right neighborhood. Anybody have a slightly different thought that's just a little bit of a difference?
I was going to do the first question.
Okay, what do you want about the first one?
0.35.
The first one is 0.35. So that seems like the advice we got a second ago was right. Because that time the decimal did move to the very beginning of the problem. But that's not always going to happen. Can somebody spot one here where the decimal isn't going to move to the very beginning of the problem?
5%.
Okay, how's that going to go?
0.05.
This is going to be 0.05. So if we just plop the decimal at the beginning, it would have been 0.5. This one's going to be 0.05. It's still, I guess, at the beginning, but we had a gap involved there. Can anybody explain what the scheme is then? What's happening here?
Y'all moving this one 2 times to the left.
How many times?
2.
2. We're going to move the decimal left 2 spaces. Why are we moving 2 spaces? What's up with that?
Because I'm 100, you have to put everything over.
Okay, so let's think about our place values. This place is the tens. The second place is the hundreds. And percents mean that we're out of
100.
100. So we have to get to the hundredths place. The hundredths place is 2 places away. So we're going to take decimal points, we're going to move them left 2 places. Some people still might be complaining in this process because some people might say, there aren't any decimals in there anyway. What are you talking about? There are decimals. Where are the invisible decimals on all of these numbers? On my board, I didn't write any decimals, but where are they invisibly located?
Where's like in the 2 places?
No, like if I say 35, where is a decimal in a whole number? Where is it?
Like at the, all the way to the right.
All the way to the right. There is an invisible decimal point. All of these numbers have invisible decimal points all the way on the right. If you don't see a decimal point, there's always one on the right end. So all we're doing today is taking our invisible decimal on the right end and moving it left 2 positions. Move this left 2 positions. We got 0.05, we got 0.35. So somebody jump in with 17. What do you think about that?
0.17.
It'd be 0.17. If we slide this left 2 positions, it's going to be 0.17. Somebody for the 40. Let's pick on you. You've been quietish today.
0.40.
0.40. Let's pick on you. You've been quiet too. What do you think?
1.17.
No, remember we're going to move it 2 spaces. Just take this decimal that's at the end, go 2 spaces. 1.73 is a win. You've been quiet today. What do you think for that one?
Just 2.
Just 2 would be best. Some people might think 2.00. 2.00 is a reasonable thing to think. We move it left 2 spaces. 2.00 is decent. But a few weeks ago, a month ago, maybe a little bit more than that, we learned we don't need these zeros at the ends of things. We don't need decimals if there's nothing going on to the right of them. Best answer on this is 2. Do any of these other ones have a better answer than based on that same idea?
0.40.
0.40, what would be better than 0.40? 0.4. Some of your quizzes that you're fixing mistakes on, you might have mistakes like that. Anytime you have a decimal, if it has zeros at the end of it, we want to drop those. It's considered simpler to drop those. We'd rather drop them. But 2 is better than 2.00. 0.4 is better than 0.40. But that's our second scheme today. Percentages make them decimals. There's always an invisible decimal if you don't see one. Move it left twice. If you do see a decimal, great, move that left twice. Like if I gave you 2.3%, that's a thing that can happen. Other days we've learned fractions decimals do not get along. Okay, you don't see a fraction with decimals in it, you don't see a decimal with fractions in it. That really just isn't done. Percentages get along with everybody. So if I give you a percentage that has a decimal already in it, you just need to move the one that you can see already 2 spaces. So what would this be if we moved this 2 spaces?
0.023.
0.023. You're not going to see that in tonight's homework, but you'll see that in your lifetime. Percentages are just fine to have decimals in them. If they already do, move the decimal you see left twice. If you don't see one, it's there, just put it on the right, move it left twice. Question about this? So here's where we are for homework. We're working off a set EE. There's no letters, there's just a set EE. Set EE has both skills. So set EE is like a big table-y thing with A's and B's. The first column, they want a fraction. So put it over 100, but if all you do is put them over 100, you will have one right answer. Why would you only have one right answer if you put it over 100? Because 24 of the 25 problems reduce. Okay, so make sure you put the number over 100, but make sure you reduce, because if you forget to reduce, the whole thing's wrong, and then I'll just make you do that part of it again, because I'm not going to take a homework with one right answer out of 25. On the decimals, we want to move the decimals all to the left 2 positions. Just on maybe 5 or 10 of them, you'll probably need to drop some zeros at the end, just to clean that up a little bit. Tomorrow is the last day before break on the calendar this year, so what we'll do tomorrow, we'll show up, we'll quickly look at that homework. I'd have a small review sheet for you that reviews the things we've done for the last week. We'll take a quiz in class to close this off before our break, and then you'd head on break with nothing to do but catch up. There'd be no new lesson, no new homework, no new anything. But if you're down on things to fix here and there and all that kind of stuff, you just sort of use your break to play catch up on things that haven't happened. Question about any of this? You hit the stop button.